Hello,
Hello.
how
Hello,
are you?
hello. I'm all right. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can now. My volume was down for some reason. I was
Oh,
like, oh no,
really?
the headphones aren't working. Yeah.
Technology, eh? How are you?
I
Oh my
know.
God, your hair looks amazing, Sam.
Thank you. It's washed out. It's gone all
I
black.
like it like that. It looks like it's on
Really?
purpose. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no. No, it's a bit peachy, but I'm rolling with it. I'm rolling with it.
Good. Good.
How are you? How have you been?
I'm all right. Yeah. I feel like everyone or a lot of people are having a very weird week. You and me both had our phones
Hmm.
trashed. So we've both been
Out of the
rushing
blue after
around.
like 5 years.
Yeah, and obviously now we're not meant to buy new phones, so that was a bit of a struggle. But yes, first world problems, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, but I am so excited about today, just so super excited about today. I've got my coffee. There you go, you got two coffees. Oh my goodness.
Annotated and not.
Amazing. Well, do you know, this is what I was thinking because you are the queen of annotations, obviously. Um, and I have the opposite issue. Like, I want my books to look as pristine as possible because in my head, that's my legacy. Like, I'm going to pass it down to all the generations of girls in my family. But with Ayesha's book, because it's so bloody brilliant, even I had to fold the corners of the
Uh-huh.
bits that I loved the most because I was like, I have to go back and read this. And it's just pure wisdom, such eloquence, such insight into the kind of themes and topics and issues that she covers in this amazing book. And I can't believe it's her debut as well.
I could not believe it when I found that out because obviously I finished it and I went back to try and find something else she'd written because I was just like, I need more. And when I found out it was the debut, I was like, that's not possible.
No,
That is
it's,
physically not possible.
yeah, it's so accomplished, isn't it?
Mhm. The
Yeah,
storytelling, the layers,
yeah.
it's just,
Yeah, the storytelling, the layers, it's amazing. And you're right, it's just so it's so layered and it covers so much within one story, so many issues, so many themes that's so relevant and it's all woven into such a coherent kind of narrative. It's amazing. It's amazing. Do we have her with us? Is she ready to
I
join
do
us?
believe that she did join. Yep, there we go.
Let's see. Aisha, are you there?
I sent a request.
Oh, brilliant. Ayesha, you should have a request. I know she's been watching us gush over her.
Honestly, though, like when I was annotating, I found myself like going backwards, even when I knew more, I was going backwards
Yeah,
and picking out things that I didn't pick out the first time because I didn't know.
yeah,
And I was like, I need to make a note of all the things that I feel silly about not connecting, but
yeah,
it was done so cleverly that I didn't connect them. I was just like,
yeah,
oh,
absolutely. And do you know what? I think you're right, and I think it's interesting what you're saying because um, I don't have the time usually to go back and read something again, even though there's so many books I'd love to. And you just saying that makes me think it must be incredible to then go back and just discover a whole other layer and a whole other lot of references that,
100.
you hadn't the first time around. And that's the beauty of a book like this, is that it's so rich, you can do that and just get even more out of it, right?
Yeah, and it was so different the second time around because I was looking at it through a different lens. I was looking at it from the perspective of what we know at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas the first time you go in and you think, oh, this is well cool, I'd do this. And then you finish it and you're like, would I do that? So it's kind of like, and then the second time you're going in thinking, probably wouldn't do that. But I might try it.
Why not?
Do you know what
Why
I
not?
mean?
Absolutely, yeah. Where is she? Where's
Fingers
Aisha?
crossed, I've just accepted. So,
Oh, brilliant. Where are you, Aisha? There she is.
hello!
Hi guys, sorry, I was trying to join from
Hey.
my laptop, but it wasn't working, so I'm here on my phone now.
Don't worry.
Oh my
Welcome.
goodness.
Thank you for making it work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This will be fun.
Yeah.
So
How are you?
excited.
We're so excited. Yeah, how are you today?
I'm really well. I'm really well. I've had a cold for a while, but now I've reached the other side, so I'm better. Yeah.
Good, good. Well,
Yeah.
we've just been singing the praises of your amazing debut, The
Oh,
Centre.
thank you so much.
We're
Thank
both
you.
incredible. Well, we're obsessed with it. We're fans of your work, and we can't believe that this really is your first, your debut novel. Can you talk to us a little bit about your journey into writing?
Yeah, so I have been writing for a while. I guess like so many writers sort of from the beginning, like from, yeah, when I was very young. Um, just kind of just an interest in languages and in journaling and then short stories and things like that. Yeah, so as a child, I wrote a lot and even had like a few things published in like children's magazines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I grew up in Pakistan. So then I moved to England at 18
Wow.
and I did a degree in economics. Very, yeah, very randomly. I think it's sort of like, I think a part of it is sort of like you're sending your daughter abroad for uni. It's better to send her to do something that will end up being a lucrative career. So I think
Yeah.
that might have been it. It's also the kind of schooling that I had. I didn't study English at school. We never had the option. You kind of chose between, you chose between accounting and science.
Right.
And yeah, that was the choice you had, and accounting seemed easier. And so that trajectory led me to do a degree in economics. So when I came to the UK, I didn't write for many years. I think it was also like the shift of it where I was just like, oh, like a kind of disorientation maybe. But
Mm.
it was serious. Like I remember like burning my diary, like literally. So it was a kind of weird cut. And then it was many years that I didn't write for, and then I started writing again, little pieces, and then publishing again.
Mm.
And then I did a PhD in English literature. So then I did actually end up studying English, and then I did a PhD, and then which I didn't finish. But during the PhD, I started writing plays, and then I had a few plays on, and then this book came during COVID.
Wow. So it was a COVID baby.
It was a COVID baby. Yeah, it was a strange time, right? Especially for those of us whose families aren't in the country. It's sort of like this cut, and then you think like, oh, so this is where I am, and what am I doing here? And is this a life that I've chosen? And I think you can see that grappling in the book, like,
Mm.
what does this mean that this is where I'm building a life? And
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I think that is sort of central to the book.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
was the centre a concept that you'd had for a while, kind of sitting in your brain, like making more story ideas throughout a long period of time, or was it something that just came to you?
So the idea itself came a while ago, and it was sort of so the kernel of the thing, which was basically, I'm going to try and speak without giving away too many spoilers, but the kernel of the thing was a woman goes to a language school and then finds out that this is how the language school is run. So that kind of central premise was somewhere in my brain for a while. And then when COVID hit, I was like, okay, let's sit with this idea and see where it goes. But because I had that kind of like skeleton or that like, yeah, like that structure, I sort of had like a beginning, middle, and end. It didn't feel as difficult to fit things in because then you ask yourself questions. So maybe you'd ask yourself, oh, why is this woman so invested in learning a language? And then you think, oh, it's because she's a translator, which was
Mm.
also helpful because I've done a few translations myself and speak more than one language, so it was easy for me to get into that into that mindset. But and then it was like, oh, how does she find out about the language school, and that's where Adam came from. So as I was trying to fill in the details of this story, more and more came, and then so much of it was obviously taken from my own life or from people I know, the experiences around me, and yeah, that's kind of how it got fleshed out. But it was very useful to at least have that structure in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Amazing.
so glad it came to fruition because I am
Ah,
excited.
thank you so much.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's so interesting to hear how it was such a simple kind of kernel of the idea. But then, what this book covers is just there's so much in it, just so much. And, we were saying, of course, that Sam is the queen of annotation, but even I had to break my rules and I had to like earmark a lot of the kind of pages where there was just these insights into male-female relationships, friendships, appropriation, violence, um, uh, entitlement, the kind of the hangover and the legacy of colonization, etc., 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 identity, so much in there. And it's so interesting to hear that it was actually something quite simple to start off with, that just grew and grew. So what was that process then? How long did it take you? And then what happened after that? How did you then, approach the industry, people in the industry, and then what happened, to get it in our hands?
Yeah. Okay. So first I'll say about the annotation thing, which is it's so moving and fascinating when people do that, when they kind of send you photos or they post things of passages that they've liked. And it so often is the passage which obviously you're fond of yourself, or which you felt like you're kind of like really tapping into something deeper and then that's the exact thing that resonates with others.
Mm,
And then also this idea of like so many themes, but at the end of the day, like these are the lives that we live, right? Like our lives are intersectional and multi-layered, and when we sit with them, then it comes out like that, but it's also in some ways very simple and very intuitive, I think.
mm,
But the way I did it, so basically I wrote a first draft. And my first draft was so hopefully in a couple of weeks, I hope I'll have news about book two, which I'm really excited. I really hope so. So I can't wait to tell you guys about that.
oh my goodness.
But it's been a
Same age.
similar. Oh, thank you. But it's been a similar thing of kind of like, let's get the first draft down.
Yeah.
And so I had a 40,000 word first draft, and that felt like enough to work with. And I often say this to people who are trying to write books, like just get it there. And then once you have it there, like because if you kind of keep going back and rewriting, it's very hard to reach the end. But I found if you can kind of keep going and get to the end and then go back and fill in, at least you have something to work with. So yeah, so book two has been somewhat complicated, but because there has been this sort of foundation to work with, you can stretch and cull and add, and as long as you have that, I found. So then I had and for me it's like 40,000 words for some reason. That feels like that's the foundation, and then to get from 40 to 70 is much easier than to get from 0 to 40.
Mm,
But yeah, so then I had this draft, and then I went back, filled it in, and then I actually approached a literary consultancy, the TLC.
yeah.
I sent it to them. They have this service where you can send them your manuscript and they send you a report commenting on it. And a friend advised me to do this. And then I mean, at the time I was just like literally like, guys, tell me if this is a book. Like, is this even a book? And then they wrote back and they were like, we can confirm that this is a book. But they were really nice. Like they were like, because I've seen, so these friends who told me to send it to them sent me their reports from the TLC, so I know that they can be like honest and straightforward.
Yeah.
And therefore I found their response all the more encouraging. They were like, this
Yeah.
this feels publishable and things like that. And then they gave me advice that I also put into place. And then with the agents, it was very confusing. So the advice you get is, oh, approach agents who publish writers that you love or writers who you feel are in your genre. So that's where I began. I did not hear back. I feel like these agents who represent the writers that we love are very, very busy and not looking for new writers often. And so that went nowhere, maybe 3 or 4 agents who, and then I started, it was just kind of the Twitter thing of just keeping my eyes peeled. And it became apparent that it would be better to look for agents who kind of say things like, I'm looking for writers, I'm open at the moment. So then that's where I went. And then I emailed my current agent and then a couple more. And I was like, oh, so this is what I've written. And I was very, with the agents, you don't need to kind of hold on to the spoilers or anything. So I was literally like, oh, this is a Pakistani translator discovers like this kind of language school. And I think that hook was quite compelling.
Yeah.
And so that's how I was matched with my agent, Sarah Langham from David Heim, and immediately it just felt like such a good match. Yeah, we got on a call, and she said, and my manuscript was also with 2 other agents at the time, and so I started the call being like, okay, like we'll think about. By the end of the call, I just knew it was very, very clear that she should represent me, and she did an amazing job. Yeah, and then it was rewrites and all of that, and then the book went out on submission, and yeah, it was a roller coaster. It wasn't all, I mean, Nina knows because she had her own books. It's a complicated process, many emotions involved.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
not a quick turnaround, but what kept you motivated to keep going and get that story out there?
So, I mean, I think the first bit with the agents, I don't know what it was, but I really felt like, okay, so I am going to I am committed to this. Like I'm doing the whole spreadsheet thing, like writing down the names of the agents, and I'm going to do, all of it. But luckily it didn't last for long, but I know that I went into it with that commitment. I was working at the time, we were in lockdown. There wasn't that much to do. That might have helped. I was working on a podcast called The Trojan Horse Affair, which was an American podcast. And that was happening in the evenings because they're based in America. And it was a hugely inspirational project to be a part of. These master storytellers. And what you see when they bring an episode to you is that everyone starts from scratch. Like really, even these storytellers who you think are kind of like the podcast is serial, so it's a very, very polished and like filled with talented people. But you see that even they start from scratch, and I think that in itself is maybe quite confidence inducing. Because by the time you reach the end, it sort of becomes this, it can seem unattainable.
Yeah.
But when you actually, and anyone can tell you, yeah, like it starts with a pile of like garbage, but you can't really believe it until, maybe you've seen it that up close or you've done it yourself. There's something,
Yeah.
and I think this might also be on purpose. I think maybe it's not as bad, but there is definitely a certain mystification of the writer figure, kind of glorification, So that sense of unattainability doesn't help us, does it? Like it just further fuels the inadequacy. And even the stuff where, I mean, I know that people love to hear this stuff I've noticed about agents and process and stuff. And again, it's because this process so badly needs to be demystified. It's a very difficult arena to step into. I think especially people of the global majority, it's very easy to feel alienated in that world because of the makeup of it. So where do you find the I don't know what it is, but yeah, how are you able to step into that? And actually, the center is a lot about that as well. Like, it's sort of
Yeah,
about how do you like step into the center from the margins, let's say, and yet maintain your authenticity,
yeah.
you know? Or
Mm,
is it in fact impossible?
mm,
I think maybe this was one of the things that the center was really grappling with, because there is something, or at least it feels like there is something really at stake if when you publish, especially if you're publishing with a big publisher.
mm.
Mm.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Yeah, it's so interesting
Mm.
what you're saying, and the parallels with the book are just so interesting, aren't they? You know, it makes me think of your protagonist, and just this struggle for identity, and also this struggle with language and the relationship with language, and how that's kind of connected to identity, but also power dynamics, colonialism, etc. And it's so great that you're talking about the industry, and that I guess because storytelling does feel magical, and having a book in your hands, feels like an impossible thing. Um, when really a lot of it is down to very practical, you know, getting your ass in a chair and doing the typing, and then lots of very practical cool kind of meetings and conversations, either about how to hone the work, or how to get it out there, and where it sits in things like the market, and all of that kind of thing, which I still don't understand.
Yeah,
um but
neither.
as you said as well, in terms of being having an identity from the global majority, and perhaps stepping into an arena or an industry where we don't see a lot of ourselves there. Can you maybe speak a little bit more about the balance? Because for me, when I read a book like this, I see no compromise. I see someone who is very clear about what they want to say, and they really say it in a way that is so assured. Um, but also, it doesn't pull any punches. It's not apologetic. It's really saying something and challenging a lot of things that are very close to the bone in terms of the industry that we're working in. And I'm sure it was much more complex than that. And I guess what I'm asking from you, because I find that challenge quite exciting, and I want to have my work be a part of the world, and that means that it's part of an industry and a business, and that there's a lot of commercial elements to kind of take into account. And I'm rubbish at all of that. I just know the story that I want to tell, and of course, there's always these nuances and these compromises and these kind of uh, yeah, just these kind of conversations to be had. And there's moments where I felt very frustrated and misunderstood, um, but I also in general have felt that I'm up for the challenge, if you see what I
Mm.
mean. Can
Mm.
you tell us a little bit more maybe about your journey in that way, like, as a person, with your particular identity, writing about the things that you do, and with a book that has, we're not the only two that like it. Let's be honest, it's been very well received. Um, can you tell us about what that means to you, and when really it's a very kind of specific and personal story?
Mm. I mean, there's a few aspects to that, right? So first of all, it does make me nervous when people say, and it's surprising how often they say within this industry, like, think of the book as a product, or at the end of the day, this is a commercial product.
Yeah.
And I'm really surprised, especially the first few times I heard that. It's very surprising. I was like, can you really say that? Like, is that something like you're actually saying that out loud? So,
Mm,
but it's like very blatant, and it's kind of pushed on you sometimes. And I find that disturbing and scary. And I guess it's because for you, for the writer, the book is such a personal thing, where you're probably dealing with things that are going on inside you, kind of grappling with internal stuff. And in a way, the book is also, um if anything, a kind of like output, like a very visible and fruitful and rewarding output of a much longer journey. But that's what it is. It's like a physical manifestation of something that has been happening inside, probably for years. And so for that to then become like, oh, you know, if we twist this a little bit this way, maybe we get more. It's, yeah, it's difficult. I don't know how to me, that feels like not the right, not a useful way to think about things. And also just yeah, kind of scary. And then also it makes you so again, like with the global majority thing, then you would also wonder like whether there is a kind of, so there's two things. I mean, it's very kind of you to say that you don't see any compromise in the book and you think that it cuts straight to the bone and there's something in there that's maybe kind of like challenging and critiquing. But then I guess the concern would be that the way that the system works, that also feeds it. Like it co-ops all of those critiques in order to justify itself. So in a way, it looks even better because it's like allowing the critiques. It's inviting you into, this sounds like so cynical, but I do think this is a part of it. Like it's, so maybe it's easier to talk about the book. And this is why fiction is so powerful, because we can speak in metaphor and sometimes we get much closer to the truth by speaking in metaphor.
Yeah.
So in the book, the Anisa is a Pakistani translator and she actually subtitles films, but she longs to be a translator of like great works of literature, right? And so immediately there's that interrogation of like, oh, where did she think of, you know, like what does that mean to her? And that also means certain languages feel more valuable to her than others because those are the languages that are valued within within the system, right? And then she ends up at this school and what is being consumed and what is being produced at this school. So yeah, something about all of those ideas, like it's sort of like in some ways questioning the idea of success in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially now, right? Especially as we live through the times that we are,
Yeah.
I think we're all asking ourselves the question of like how, I don't know, many of us are asking ourselves the question of how to best be of service and how our work is so easily co-opted that even acts of subversion or rebellion, in fact, are feeding into the system because they are making it more legitimate. They're just propping up the status quo more. So I'm not sure how to deal with it, but these days what I'm thinking, or at least what I'm writing about, is that it's in itself, the sense of impotency in itself, or the sense of maybe like wanting to check out of life or something like that. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm exploring with the second book, of what that despair can do to us.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
something
excited.
like
I'm so excited.
that.
Me too. What can you tell us about this new work?
Oh, not much yet, but hopefully very soon. Hopefully very soon. I guess what I can say is it's very different. I mean, I'm sure Nina knows this because your new one has literally just come out about a month ago. Say You'll
Yeah.
Be There, which is a beautiful book.
Thank you.
Yeah, but and I don't know if you agree, but the first book, it was like a complete roller coaster. I mean, I had no idea what that would look like. And there's also kind of the buzz of it.
Yeah.
And then it happens and then it's done. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
nice that things like this continue to happen and there's been a lot of support and there's been good feedback. But also you really don't know what it is. And also it feels very intimidating. And then the editing takes so long and all of that. And then with the second, I think it becomes this thing of, okay, was that a one-off or is this something that I can really like make into a calling or a vocation or a career or whatever? Like there's the anxiety of that.
Yeah.
And then also, like, alhamdulillah, the book did do well. And then there also becomes the comparison thing of like, because I think the second book is a much quieter book. I think. I mean, we'll see. but if it is, am I okay with that, you know?
Mm,
And
mm,
like that is very scary to me. It's like, will I want, and I think a part of me does. It wants like either the same or a better response. And but it's very possible that it's a different kind of book, and that is fine, you know? That doesn't say anything. Like the sort of critical feedback is not necessarily a reflection of anything. Even the quality of the book is not necessarily a reflection of anything. This is like a journey that we're on.
yeah.
But that is scary. Like a second book is scary in its own way.
Mm,
But at least that process is demystified of like writers and sorry, editors and agents and all of that.
yeah. Yeah.
And also I think, yeah, like the door is a bit more open, isn't it, with the second?
Yeah.
Like that stuff is in place, and yeah, and there's a little community of readers as well. So
Yeah.
that can be nice. Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
something to kind of push you along. Like, you've got the readers that love the first one. They're gonna go for the second one like we are. The minute it drops, we'll be there.
Thank you.
So it's got that that comfort in knowing that, I suppose.
Yeah, I
Mm,
think there is a comfort, but then the danger is, and this has also come from people, in the industry of like, oh, does it need to be a bit like the center? Is there that expectation now?
yeah.
So there is that. But there's also been something about the readership that has been very warm. Like it's sort of been like a kind of like vibe of solidarity and support and warmth and love. Like there's been a sort of sisterhood around the book that has felt
Mm,
very supportive.
yeah.
And so you would, I do hope that they'd come along for the second in that kind of way, with that,
Yeah.
yeah, with
But
that
it's
compassion.
it sounds so, the little that you've told us already, I mean, it sounds so relevant and so needed, like it's so interesting, I guess, as you said, to kind of question our role in this very current, very extreme time. And, I know that I'm not the only one who really cannot make sense of where we are and what's happening and what we're witnessing on a daily basis. But as you've already said, it seems like you're exploring all of that in terms of what that does, to humans, us as humans. Um, and I think because it's so relevant and so needed, whether it's quiet, whether it's not, it's an important exploration, it sounds to me, and so I trust and believe that you will be in very good company,
Oh,
as you were with the centre, and it's so interesting that you've said there's been such a warm sisterhood, because it makes sense to me, because some of the extracts that I kind of highlighted, or earmarked, were about friendship, were about sisterhood, and how that's affected by other relationships, other things that are going on in life, career choices, life choices, etc. So again, it's all relevant and it's all kind of woven in.
oh, thank
Um,
you so much.
no, absolutely.
I think one of the good things about working in this way, I don't know what genre you would place this book in, but it's often thought of as speculative.
Yeah.
And I think one of the benefits of working in speculative is that you're able to, that sort of disjunction from, so-called reality can sometimes allow you to go into this space, which is maybe closer to like a dream space.
Mm,
And so when you, and I think this happens with the second book as well. And so when you can go into that space, which is essentially reality, but just at a slight angle, right? Then you're able to tap into, I mean, hopefully something that is going on beneath that speaks to the moment. So in the same way, so rather than maybe speaking overtly, although I think there is overt critique as well in the center, you're also able to tap into certain feelings and yeah, yeah. So
mm,
so so I like that form.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. I totally know what you
Mm.
mean. And it's also, it keeps you safe in a way, in some way, which I think is really important, especially as you said, with the identity that you're writing from. We are vulnerable, you are vulnerable in different nuanced ways. Um,
This is so true. It keeps you safe. Yeah, that's a really good point, Nina. I like that.
yeah,
But yeah, it keeps you safe, but also you hopefully you're reaching. So yeah, I guess this is the other thing. The book I think works on those two levels. You could read it as a like a thriller kind of thing, or you could read it, and maybe this is how I see it, as the so-called story being in fact a skeleton on which to hang the real story or something like that, you know. But you could,
ooh,
yeah, but you could read it both ways on both levels, and different people relate to different aspects of it. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Jumping back to the centre, language is used as a tool of empowerment and a weapon of control. And I'm intrigued whether you think that it's possible to separate language from power. Because we
Um,
all know that knowledge is power, but we often like share our knowledge through language.
mm, mm. So I think one of the things that the book talks about is the hierarchy of languages, and this idea of the supremacy of certain tongues over others. And so for instance, there's a scene in the book where Adam, her partner, goes to Pakistan, and he speaks Urdu fluently because he's been to this language school, and he's like applauded everywhere he goes, and he's given these freebies. And when you see the inverse, you know, there's obviously nobody thinks it's a big deal that Anissa's speaking English in England. So that kind of double standard around language. And then also the languages that Anissa chooses to learn, she's like, oh, if I spoke German, that would make for a very good yeah, and how these things are connected to status and to class. I grew up in Pakistan, and there is this. I mean, it's obviously like colonial hangover, white supremacist, whatever idea that English, you know, is the language that is connected to status and class. And I, you know, went to a school. My English is better than my Urdu by far.
Wow.
And yeah, and there's something sad about that. Um, I I I do feel like I've very consciously tried to hold on to my Urdu as much as I can, and also to improve it, I take, you know, I study it and translate and things like that. But nonetheless, it can be difficult. And then you think about all of, because it's not just a language, is it? It's a whole way of thinking. It's a history as well, because there's a literature, there's like family course, like so many things that you are cut off from when you are cut off from your mother tongue.
Yeah.
And so the violence of that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, there's a whole other aspect to this which I haven't explored, which is around AI and this how it's just going to become more and more automated, and I don't know what that means.
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's a whole other book.
Yeah. It is.
It's so dark, that element, and it's so vast, really, when you begin to pick away at, the loss and what has been lost, and the what continues to be lost. When I look back at your book today, in preparation for this, what struck me the most was how funny it was and how much I'd forgotten the wit um, in it, and it's so hard to do. It's so hard, especially when it's not your mother tongue, by the way. That's to be funny in a different language that isn't your first is a very, very, I think, rare thing, first of all. But I mean, it's one of my favorite openings, and I'd forgotten what the opening was, and I'm going to like paraphrase it. It's something like, it all started with Adam, doesn't it always, or something like that. And I thought, this is so brilliant. And it goes on, from there. And of course, that's so relevant, with everything that you talk about. But I'm such a huge fan of humor, and I think comedy is just not revered or respected enough for the powerful, subversive tool that it is. Can you tell us a bit about, you infusing this very layered, rich book that deals with such dark subject matter with humor?
Yeah, oh, thank you so much for recognizing that. It's yeah, I think I mean it's really funny to crack a joke from time to time, right? Like there is something about it that cuts through something,
Yeah,
and especially this kind of like dark humor, where you're discussing very serious things and then you say something just like funny. I think there's something. It also feels like it allows for a kind of intimacy in the text. So both
yeah,
this like I don't know, like there's the voice itself like is maybe quite accessible and casual, and then the humor on top of that I think adds maybe to that.
yeah,
Um yeah, I feel like there's just moments of tension, or even like really like anger inducing stuff that can only be addressed through jokes, like in a way there's no other, because if you're going to get like really angry, then in a way all you do is like the gaze turns there's a critical gaze that turns towards you. But yeah, like you're saying, humor can really be a weapon. It is my first language. English is my first language,
yeah.
but also the humor has been. People have said, like, I mean, Pakistanis are also just very funny. People have said it's a very Pakistani kind of humor. So there's something about that as well. I have a few, like, I can see my cousin, someone, I have a few like family members watching, and so
Oh,
they know it's like we're like that's what our family is like. There's loads of jokes, and it's a very kind of like sharp and interesting brand of humor that seems to run in the family.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's a way of communication, I guess,
yeah,
that feels very inherent
yeah,
to the way that I've grown up. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like it worked so perfectly in the book, like as a buffer between the darker moments, because I think, as I've said, I've annotated so much in this book, but the one thing that is topped the most is funny moments.
Mm.
And the second one is obviously shocking. But the funny moments, there was just so many. And I was just like, I didn't expect this,
Yeah.
especially towards the end. Like, I was like, I didn't expect to be laughing my head off and then kind of grimacing at the next page.
Yeah. I think also like what I find is that what happens is immediately ingratiates and humanizes the protagonist, because if you can crack a joke with them or share a shared experience through humor, and often we're laughing at things because we all know that reference, or we all
Mm.
kind of have experienced that kind of thing. Then we're on board much faster. And again, if it's a character that's from a different background, or there's something that maybe could potentially be a barrier, that's alleviated much faster when we realize it's just a human, who is having an experience. And I think then, getting people on side in that way allows for you to go on a deeper and darker journey with them later because they're on board, kind of thing. So
Mm.
that's often what I do is, I start with a bit of humor, then whack them over the head with the serious stuff afterwards.
Yeah, it's funny with the protagonist because she also sometimes veers into, I think, like quite unlikable territory.
Yeah.
So it's like, how far are you going to hold this woman's hand? But the interesting thing is also she does tend to be self-critical, but
Mm.
not always in the moments where she needs to be self-critical, you know?
Oh.
So there's something about her that it can be infuriating as well, I think.
Mm.
And that was an interesting line to tread,
Yeah.
which I suppose is also true to life, like in terms of how we are, especially when we choose to be so vulnerable, which she's choosing to be on the page.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, how do we hold space for that of like being with her at times and at other times, maybe even repelled? I don't know.
Mm.
Um,
Much more
Yeah.
interesting, much more interesting, much more nuanced. Um,
Yeah.
you also mentioned already, you know, this the sisterhood that's been created around this book, and female friendship um, is a really important theme in this book as well. And there's one of the gorgeous quotations that again I earmarked, you know, was all about the fact that certain relationships, especially romantic ones, especially if they're heterosexual, are celebrated, you know, with these very kind of traditional moments and milestones in the world. But these often lifelong relationships, you know, female friendships, there aren't these same markers, these same kind of, you know, milestones and celebrations. And yet they're such a kind of important and essential thing that make the world go round, you know, that keep the world from falling apart, really. Can you talk to us more about that and what that means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think essentially it's what you've said, but this idea of it's sort of shocking the ways, in spite of the ways in which the world has changed, how kind of heteronormative these frameworks are and the kinds of
Yeah,
relationships in literature and in life are privileged and celebrated and considered the markers of, I don't know, like success,
yeah, yeah,
how sad when we all know the strength and kind of support that we get from our friendships or our female relationships, and how they can be so much more nourishing and long lasting than these romantic heterosexual relationships, which are considered still kind of the core of people's lives. But at the same time, how nice that we are moving away from these frameworks, it seems. Anissa has grown up. I mean, I guess she's around, I don't know, like are she's grown up in an age essentially where it was much worse, like Bollywood and Disney, and maybe that stuff is changing a little bit, where it's not always like, oh, the happy ending is being kissed by the prince or
yeah,
whatever, but it's but it's still very, it's still slow to change, and these are still the things that we herald as markers of success, and these are the things that are celebrated.
yeah,
Um, yeah, how difficult that
absolutely,
can be sometimes for people who are not fitting into the preset framework.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Throughout the book, there's almost a haunting idea that knowing a language perfectly might mean losing part of yourself. How did you explore that idea? And do you see language as something that connects us, consumes us, or maybe a bit of both?
So I think what maybe one of the fears is, as I said, this idea of because it's not a straightforward gain, is it? So, for example, like if we talk about assimilation, like the changes that have occurred within me since I moved to England, like there is what you notice maybe more because this is the place you're in and this is where you're now trying to fit in. And so maybe what you notice more, especially at first, is the ways in which that becomes easier. And only much later do you look back and think, oh, like this is what has been lost.
mm,
Um, so there is, yeah, this weird sort of, I don't know, like a sadistic kind of like scale where you have to, sometimes it does feel like you have to give up one for the other. And as you become more, I don't know, as I become more British, I become more foreign when I go back, and vice versa. So it's something like that, maybe.
mm,
Um, yeah, I'm not. I mean, Anissa's a translator. I've attempted a few translations, but I'm not really. That's not what I do. But recently I picked up a book to translate, an Urdu book, and it was like a really interesting experience. It was by this professor of philosophy, an older gentleman, and I opened this book, and at first it felt so exciting. In fact, I'd spoken to a publisher about it, and then as I started reading this book, it was like, oh no, like there was various kind of problematic things coming up around his
Mm.
representation of women. And then his central kind of love interest was a European woman, and he was talking about the superiority of the European woman to the local and things like that. And
Wow.
then I was like, oh my gosh, like there's this weird thing of like, do I really want to? And then if I do, is this like stuff I should correct, like in the translation? And then I don't know why I'm telling you guys this story, but it's just occurred to me, and I'm like, maybe I just need to get off my chest. And then, and so then I contacted this writer, and I was like, oh, like certain edits may be necessary. And then
Yeah.
I convinced myself, like, oh, I'm actually going to be like teaching him about how to represent women better if I like help him edit out the problematic parts of his book. And
Brilliant.
yeah, and he was, I think maybe it was partly because I was a female Pakistani translator, that he was like not very pleased and said he wouldn't change one thing about his book. And
Wow.
in the end, and then I thought that could become a really interesting book. It could be about a translator translating this man's book and the like tussle between them, like this kind of like pompous
Yeah.
professor of philosophy. And I thought, oh my gosh, we'll have a whole like thing, and then I'll write about that, like in parallel to doing the translation. So
I
I really got
love
into the
that.
drama of it. But yeah, it's not happening anymore. But I guess maybe the reason I tell that story is because yeah, like within every language, every culture, there are things to unravel and question and think about. And we can't, and sometimes it becomes harder to do that stuff within your own culture when you're so divorced from the language, or the culture. Like, and then it can even become this kind of outsider gaze. So
Yeah.
rather than sitting in your culture and being like, oh, this is the way that like a patriarchal force is manifesting in my family. And how do I speak from within that? You yeah, are you speaking from within that, or are you speaking from outside of that? And these are the dangers of assimilation and the dangers of like stepping away. And
Hmm.
a lot of this is emotional, right? Like, are you
Yeah.
still in your heart in there? And a lot of this is also this sort of like internalized racism, like the self-shaming, or I mean, it goes so deep, this
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, I think this is where the love of translation comes from, of like
Mm.
maintaining that engagement.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so nuanced, isn't it? And like you said, it's such a balance. Something gained feels like something lost. Um, and there's so much to grapple with, especially again in this current context. What is it that you reach for comfort, for sanity, to keep you going, to keep you, you talked about, writing about kind of stepping out of life because of, the world that we're living in and what life is, on a daily at the moment. What keeps you here? What keeps you going, and what is nourishing for you and nurturing for you in this moment?
Okay, so in terms of writers, I guess there are some that I return to again and again who can be nurturing. And obviously, I guess one of them is James Baldwin. And maybe the reason why James Baldwin is so nourishing is, and maybe this is the real work of writers, right? So we were talking about how do we address the times? What do we do? Do we just talk about the despair? And I mean, James Baldwin's work is not necessarily like, he's not saying, oh, this is what's happening in the world at the moment and this is what we should do or anything, although his nonfiction does address stuff like that. But in his fiction, what he's doing is he's just coming closer and closer and closer to the heart, and dealing with all these layers of rage and betrayal and injustice, and the effect that those things have on the heart, and the
Mm,
effect that those things have on our relationships, on the things that happen between one person and another. And essentially his subject is often love, because what better than love And again, I don't mean just romantic love, but yeah, what better than love in order to find these fissures or these scars or these like I don't know, like the cracks.
Yeah.
Um and the reason that he does that so well is, I mean, I guess maybe he's just a genius, but also it's this thing of maybe the real idea is like to come closer and closer and closer to yourself or to the truth or to God, however you define it. And the enormous amount of courage that is needed to do that, which Baldwin,
Absolutely.
maybe that's key, like courage. And I
Yes.
don't think his courage was easily earned. I think there's really been some awful stuff that he's gone through to get there.
Yeah.
And then also I really love Adrian Rich. Like I feel like that can be like a map almost, you know, like almost like instructional somehow and very strength giving. And Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Emily Dickinson also, you get that feeling, you know,
Yeah.
of a hand reaching across like an abyss or something. Um yeah, and then new writers like Elena Ferrante I really like as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also work that's being done, like as Nina knows, she's very involved in her own kind of work, and we're doing this work like sometimes quietly, maybe sometimes that's what's required, but there is work being done as well.
Yeah.
And then there's despair, and then there's burnouts, and then there's the hope that as one kind of round burns out, then someone else takes
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
How do we mentor? How do we mentee? How do we like, you know, practical? I don't know. It's and yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe things like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now it's getting cold, so I reach for like my blanket, a lot stuff like that, like just staying warm. Yeah.
I have my blue blanket right here.
Oh, that looks so cute.
But
Yeah.
I'm so glad you've mentioned those writers. My goodness, we could do a whole hour just on James Baldwin himself, and I love what you said about, you know, him just because he's so political when he's interviewed, and yet his work isn't overtly political, you know, his fiction work. But you're so right; it's all about the heart and the courage it takes, as you said. And it makes me think, you know, sometimes I feel like people would be more willing to fly to the moon or climb Mount Everest than just to sit with themselves for, you know, a day and and you know, figure some shit out. And I think if they probably did, we'd be living in a different world.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad also that you've brought up, you know, the work, you know, that is happening on a grassroots level and the activism. And I know all three of us are involved in that in different ways. I know that you and I met, you know, through these groups, you know, that are really trying to push for support and change, you know, in Palestine and Sudan and Congo, you know, and just trying to help, especially with these kind of mutual aid grassroots efforts. And you, Ayesha, have been so responsive and so incredibly generous with everything that I've tried to do in that area. So I just want to name that because you and people like you who have been so responsive, and Sam as well, who's absolutely brilliant in that field and just uses her platform every day for good, are what keep me going, you know. And the fact that I feel in the moments where I feel so isolated in my horror, I feel so deeply connected to people who share that and want to do anything they can think of in however imperfect a way to just help, you know, if it's at all possible, and make change. So thank you for naming that.
Oh, alhamdulillah, that's really nice, Nina. Thank you. I mean, obviously, the feeling is of despair and of not actually doing enough or what's actually
Yeah,
happened, like all of those things. But I think maybe that's nice to leave it where you've left it because it is this thing of that in itself means something, and we can't
yeah,
forget that, right?
yeah,
Like to have that space with like-minded people
mm,
is in itself important.
yeah,
And also, I don't know, you do see a change, like you see a change from decades ago. This has been happening forever. This has been
yeah,
happening. And so just that kind of awareness and that presence and that in itself kind of provides the strength to speak more openly.
yeah, yeah,
So maybe
absolutely.
yeah, so maybe it's good to value, because I often jump straight from that to, oh no, but actually not doing it, actually what is it all, but actually no, like it's good to value that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And also to acknowledge that it doesn't feel enough.
Mm,
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
all. Yeah.
And the fact
when
it
what
doesn't feel enough shows your heart.
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely.
mm,
Well put, Sam. I
mm.
mean, I feel I would love to just keep that as the final thought, really, because this has been such a full circle, beautiful conversation. And so, as with your work, so rich and so layered,
Oh,
so
thank you
real, so
so.
uncompromising, so authentic. Just thank you, Aisha. And we're just so thrilled to hear that there's something new coming out very, very soon. This is great
Oh,
news.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and I've had so much fun. This has been such a heartwarming conversation. Thank you.
thank you so much for
Absolute
coming on.
pleasure. Thank you, Aisha.
Okay, take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Wow.
Oh, I love this.
I really do, Sam. Honestly, like I spend a significant amount of my time just reflecting on the conversations that we have every week, and
Mhm.
I know because of what we've shared in our messages, how blown away we are about, the quality of conversations that we've been having over the last few weeks. So
Every single week.
every
Every
single
week.
week. Yeah, yeah. And clearly there's a hunger for it from the writers as well. And we want to thank absolutely everyone that's been joining us for these lives, because you are such a massive part of this conversation and the reason why we do it. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's such, it's, it can be quite intimidating at first,
Yeah,
and it can be quite humbling if you just see like a little zero in the top corner and you feel
yeah,
like you're talking to yourself. But that's something like it's lovely to do it with someone else.
yeah,
It's lovely to have someone else's input, someone else's, because it is a conversation at the end of the day, but it's so nice to have other people inputting, even if it is in a text box.
yeah,
It's so nice to hear other opinions in the conversation. So, yeah, thank you so much.
yeah. Thank you, everyone. And next week we have another amazing guest. Her name is Morgan Lloyd Malcolm. She's somebody who I have been fangirling for a very long time. She is a playwright, a screenwriter, among many other things, an activist, someone who's incredibly warm, very kind, very generous, and incredibly intelligent and so talented. I think I'm right in saying that she was the first woman to be commissioned by the Globe Theatre, which is obviously a theatre that has been built to only put on and perform a dead white man's plays, to write a play that was specifically for that space. And it was called Amelia, and it stands today still as one of the most important works in British theatre, as well as many other achievements since then. So I'm very, very excited to be speaking with her as well.
I can't wait. That is incredible.
Yeah. So please join us, everybody, for next week as well.
And we
And
will let
until
you know the
then,
time and the date in due course.
as usual, yeah. And thank you, Sam, for all the work that you do behind the scenes to make this happen, because you really are an absolute powerhouse.
As are you. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Getting the guests on, doing little check-ins. It means a lot.
Pleasure, my love. You make it very easy. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Well,
Bye.